Okay. Well, I'm here with Thomas Lyons, old friend of mine, and Thomas is um, the owner of the very famous bookstore around here in New England, the New England Mobile Book Fair. And recently, I mean, I was in the old book fair before he had it, and I was in when he had it. I was there, a huge warehouse of books. But he downsized and moved, and this was in Newton, and he downsized and moved to the Marshall Plaza in Newton. Now he has to leave there, and it's bad enough, for indie bookstores, but it's particularly now. So I was going to say, can you give me just a brief history of the Newton Mobile Book Fair?
Sure. I bought it at the end of 2011 from the original owners, or next to original owners, the Streimishes. It was formed in the mid-50s by a woman who was selling books to schools and libraries out of her station wagon. That's how it got its quirky name. And a chemist from Harvard, Lou Streimish, bought it from her in the 50s, and he made it brick and mortar, but he kept the name because everybody knew who it was. And he put a brick and mortar in West Roxbury in a garage, and that burned down. And then he moved to Needham Street in Newton, where the China Fair is now. And 2 doors over, where the warehouse that we had came about in '64. And so he bought that, and he slowly filled it with books. And they had, and they still sold only to schools and libraries. I'm not sure when they opened it up to the public, but over time they amassed a lot of books, and they did extremely well. But then when Amazon, who's my gorilla, raised its ugly head, revenues dropped rapidly. And I went over there. I just had gotten off a management gig after a year, and I had a couple of weeks off, and I went over just to unwind and get lost in those stacks. Met up with a manager, and I knew it had been for sale for a couple of years. And I said, "I guess you've been sold." And he said, "No." And I was shocked because it's an icon, or had been an icon. And it bothered me so much that I finally went and sat down with a broker. And a lot of the big bookstores had looked at it, but they kind of ran the other way. And when I sat down with him, I found out why. The revenues had dropped significantly, and they didn't have any financials. It was a real mom and pop shop, so there was nothing to look at. And all the books, as you probably remember, were on the shelf by publisher, not by genre. And so I guess that scared a lot of people. Plus, there was about 3 inches of dust, everything in the warehouse. So I took a hard look at it, and I started formulating a plan. I put a business plan together, but you're probably well aware, Doug, that a business plan is something that you throw out the day after you put it in place. And so it took me about 6 months to actually make a deal. And so I bought it, and I had them take back nearly $1 million loan, because we just had no way of knowing what was under the covers. And it's good I did, because I did get some of that back because of errors and omissions. I don't think they were overt. But at any rate, we paid that loan back early. But we did have to take out another loan, and that was banks won't touch a bookstore, so we had to get it from those lenders that charge you, 20 or 30% interest, which we also paid back. But in the meantime, over the 5 years I was in the warehouse, the revenues continued to drop, and my rent and tax was approximately $20,000 a month, and I had 36 employees to pay, and minimum wage went up $3 an hour. And initially, my idea was, it took us about 20 months to move everything into genre. put an inventory system in place. We had to buy a server and computers, and then we had to scan 1 million books in by hand. And we fixed the vacuuming systems and took the dust off. And we thought they were doing pretty well in terms of infrastructure, but the revenues continued to drop. More and more people kept going on to Amazon. And so sustaining that overhead was very difficult. We actually had, we worked with 2 organizations that found jobs for autistic people, and we had a person from each of those organizations working there the whole 5 years. And initially, once I got into the genre, the idea was to cut staff. And then one day, a couple of my employees were following a guy around the store. And I asked them why, and apparently he was a convicted child abuser. And so whenever he came in, they followed him around because we had, you remember, thousands and thousands of children's books, and there were so many nooks and crannies in that place. And at that point, I decided on a moral value that I didn't want to cut staff. I wanted my people all over that store, in and out of those stacks all the time, because that almost anything could happen. In retrospect, it hurt badly to do that, and now we only have 3 employees in a much smaller space. But again, not ideal. But so we had to move out of there. We couldn't sustain it. And
you want to move to Somerville. In fact, you're interested in Davis Square. Some people would say, why do you want to do this? I mean, book business is bad enough, independent book business. It's the middle of a pandemic. I mean, it seems like you're, and I mean this in the best sense of the word, a holy fool. I mean, tell me what drives you? Well, yeah, and you're not even getting, you tell me you pay your employees, but you're not getting paid either.
No.
So one might ask, what drives you?
Well, I've always loved books, Doug, and of course I'm a writer, as you know, and a poet, and the whole aura of books and writers, and I wanted to create a venue, for writers and poets to come and explore. There are some independent bookstores that won't entertain new authors, and I wanted to be able to give people an audience and a chance to be able to show their works and their worth. And I love the whole thing. And my sans the pandemic, the other bookstore, independent bookstores in the area are doing okay, or were doing okay. And my problem was the vast overhead that we had, and then we were saddled with that debt. And if I could raise the funds through GoFundMe to be able to pay for a move and pay to move from and to, and then restock with the small overhead, we'd be able to survive. And if I get to break even, I'll be very, very happy. And obviously this is going to be my last shot. I can't keep doing this, but I still want to have that place where poets like yourself can come to and give there's a vast audience out there who love books and love poetry, and that they need a place to be. Davis Square for me seems ideal for a number of reasons. The first is that it's a very vital area. There's a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of clubs and coffee shops, and and of course I'm thinking that the pandemic is going to go away someday. And it also has the tea, so people are coming all the time on the tea and going. It also has a theater, so there is a lot. That's very similar to what Coolidge Corner is, and the Brookline Booksmith has done extremely well.
Have you ever thought of Union Square? They're building a subway there. It's a lot of people down there, a lot of academic students.
I thought about it a little bit, and I saw a couple of listings early on that wanted 30, 40, $50 a square foot, which is just a disaster. I also have to find a landlord who would be willing to work with us at least for that first year and not charge us an arm and a leg and two toes. And in terms of being able to, they want a bookstore, and they understand that it'll be a long-term thing, and it'll be very good in the long term. And I couldn't see a whole lot of evidence in Union Square. It was so torn up. It's getting less like that now. But if the traffic is there, I wouldn't mind considering Union Square.
Mhm. Now, I know you've contacted Somerville government about this. How have they been receptive to this?
Well, I emailed the mayor, and he had his economic development guy, Tom, and I can't pronounce his last name. He contacted me, we chatted a little bit, and he had somebody send me 6 listings, including one that there's a family in Newton that has had properties in Davis Square for 4 generations. And we talked quite a bit. He knew the book fair well. He didn't have anything available. And at the time, when I talked to him very early this year, he was getting $60 a square foot. Just impossible. But the other ones, the other listings were over near McGrath and O'Brien Highway, where there's very little traffic on Linden Street.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't make any sense. If I'm going to do this, I have to have foot traffic. And when I have foot traffic, I'll be fine. I'll be downsizing again from the 4,000 square feet I'm in, probably to about 1,000 to 1,500.
Do you think there's a need for a bookstore in Davis Square, because there's the Porter Square Books just down the block, kind of?
Yeah, they're like a half a mile away.
Yeah.
But when I looked at that carefully, and I the people that get off the subway in Davis Square aren't getting off in Porter Square. And if you remember that McIntyre and Moore was a very successful used bookstore there for a while. Actually, I don't remember that.
Yeah, but it was there for a long time.
Yeah, before my time,
Yeah.
And then there's been that vinyl record store there for a million years. And so that's why I thought Davis not only could hold its own, but the people there would really appreciate having the bookstore.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's why I was focused on Davis, and if somebody can show me that Union is coming back and there's lots of traffic, I wouldn't mind looking at that either.
So I was going to ask you, how can people contribute to your fund, your GoFundMe?
They go to the YouFundMe page, and there's I think I sent you the tag, which is NE Book Fair.
NE Book Fair, standing for New England Book Fair. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. November Echo Book Fair. And that will pop up, and then they can donate if they wish. And if they would share it at any rate, that would be great to get more people to see it and have those people send it to more people. Yeah,
I know. I've sent it around a lot to different places. So that's, again, you go to GoFundMe and put in New England Book Fair.
NE Book Fair.
NE Book Fair.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
And then you can contribute however everything counts. You want to contribute a lot or a little.
Right.
Everything counts.
Yeah,
I agree. It would be great to have a bookstore in Davis Square or Union Square. I think it would meet a need, and it would be small. It would be a small bookstore, but it would have enough for. It would have enough for place to read, poets to read and things like that, and writers to read.
Right. And I think, I mean, Somerville doesn't have a bookstore now. And I think that, like you said, I think there's a need, and there's a lot of writers and talent, and there is certainly a reading population there.
Well, I want to thank you, Thomas, for coming on, poet to poet, writer to writer. and hopefully we'll see your new store in Davis Square soon, okay?
Right, if anybody can contact you or me that, has some place, there are 4 empty stores. 3 or 4 weeks ago, there were 4 empty stores in Davis, but they didn't have any addresses on the
Right.
doors, and they also didn't have any information on, they were for rent or who had them. And I think there may be a few more because there's still going to be more fallout. When I bought the store, Boston University did an article on me, and the title was "Crazy, the Man Bought a Bookstore," and you kind of added to that, Doug. And in a lot of ways, it is crazy, but it's a passion, and I just wish this was okay so that I could get back to writing. I've got enough for a second book of poetry out, and I just don't have the time to.
Well, I'll say this. I think you and I are the same. We love community, and I don't get paid for creating community. I'm not paid for this show or whatever, but it's a vital part of my life. So, I can understand it. So thank you, Tom, for joining us. And please, yeah?
Go ahead. I just want to say thank you, Doug, for, not only your interest, but your support. And hopefully, this will happen. And if it doesn't, we'll still see you on Poet to Poet, with my next book.
All right. I definitely will. Thank you very much, Tom.
You're welcome.